We're going to try again. We had some technical difficulties there, but we're happy to be with everyone tonight. So good evening, everyone. My name is Indiana Troop, and we want to thank you all for joining us tonight for our Meet the Candidates night. Whether you're joining us in person, virtually on Zoom, or live on TV, it's my pleasure to welcome you for our discussion. And it is very exciting to be back here in person for this event, and I'm so excited to be back. So before we start, I'd like to invite Peter Teitelbaum to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance for the people at home. Just a warm-up before.
I'm old, I just hope I remember the words. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Hopefully that's the last time. Thank you, Peter. And next, I'm going to turn it back over to Jody Smith, the producer and organizer for our event tonight, to talk about the rules and format of our debate. Jody.
Thank you, Indiana. I'm going to do a little speed reading now. So each candidate's going to have 3 minutes for an introduction. Then Indy's going to ask questions. They'll have 2 minutes to respond to the questions. After all the candidates have answered the questions, there'll be an opportunity for them to reply to it. And I've been stressing all along, we want factual things. This is not going to be personal attacks in any manner. Tell us what you think. Then they will get a 2-minute closing statement. And I failed to forget to introduce Alex sitting up here. Alex is from the Wareham Week. She's doing the timing. She will let the candidates know when time's running out. We have a lot of predetermined questions. The candidates have not seen any of these questions. But people will be allowed to send questions in from the Zoom meeting or at home. And also, I've left a pad of paper and pen over there on the table. If you have a question you'd like to ask, please write it and bring it up to John. And that's my wife, Janice, sitting there. Again, please keep these questions directed at all the candidates. So at that time, I'm going to turn it back to Indiana, and he will introduce the first candidate.
All right, so before I do that, are there any questions for any of us about any of that? All right. So when a question is posed, I will say the candidate's name, the question, and a reminder of how long they have to answer the question. Each candidate will answer the same question until all candidates have answered. So for example, I would say, Mr. Troop, what made you choose to run for this position? You have 2 minutes to answer. And then I would answer the question. We have carefully selected questions, as Jody was saying, that have been submitted by the public and reviewed by our team. And like he was saying, if you have a question you'd like to ask tonight, you can write the question on a piece of paper right over here and hand it up to us. Or if you're joining from home, we ask that you submit questions through Zoom in the chat, and we will also get those questions reviewed and up to us. But please keep in mind that for the sake of time, not all questions will be answered. I want to thank Jody and WCTV for giving me the opportunity to be here tonight. It is such an honor to be able to represent our town and pose important questions to our candidates so our voters can be better informed when the election comes. I also want to make sure that all candidates understand the importance of this event for the people of Wareham. As Jody was saying, it's imperative that this discussion remains helpful, thoughtful, civil, and relevant to our town. The voters and residents of Wareham deserve to have the ability to be better informed voters by your responses tonight. And with all this being said, we will call the candidates' night to order. So we will start with our first candidate running for the Board of Assessors, David Halberstadt.
A few more people here.
How are you tonight, David?
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Of course, of course. So without further ado, we will give you 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Okay. A little history. Our family used to vacation in Wareham and Onset in the early 60s and actually bought a property that I now live in back in 68. So I apologize for being, a newcomer to town, and having spent the last couple of years on the Board of Assessors, I think I can give you a sense of what we do, what I do, and hopefully answer any questions that anyone has. I'm a typical taxpayer of on my own. And over the years, when I've had questions on assessments or what my property was worth, I'd come in and talk to the people in the office. And I guess over the years, I really felt they were pretty amazing and always very helpful. And maybe, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, a small piece of property we had I thought was improperly assessed. And eventually we went to the state court, and we lost in a fair fight. But I got to know the new assessor, Jackie Nichols, very well. And that was my downfall, because sometime about 2.5 years ago, she asked me if I'd be interested in running for the Board of Assessors, because there was going to be an opening. And knowing nothing, I said yes, and I won. And then after I won the election, they then told me I had a 10-module course that I had to pass, and I had to pass the 4th module like immediately, otherwise I wouldn't be allowed to sign any of the waivers or abatements that people were banging on the door looking for. So I spent the last couple of years learning very quickly, and I guess I'd like to just take a moment and mention this is the first public meeting where there are people, many without masks, and it's sort of nice to be getting back to normal. But over that 2 years that I've been an assessor, we had the business of our department to run, and 3 people, Nancy Roth, Robin Maricini, and Renee Nevitt-Akins. They were there every day. They got everything done. No one that I know of complained they didn't get their answers or their assessments or their cuts that they were asking for. So I was just very impressed with the professionalism of the staff and what they do and how well they do it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And our first question for you tonight, David, is you've been in the role as a town assessor since 2020. What would you say is the role of the Board of Assessors? You have 2 minutes.
I think the board is pretty much, initially I thought our role was just to sign things. That we'd get stacks of paper 6 inches high. But I did learn pretty quickly that with each piece of paper we signed, there was a package that I don't think there was one mistake made in the 2 years I've been on the board. The board sets policy, and then the professionals, Jackie Nichols and Steve Curry, do the day-to-day. And then at our meetings and throughout the year, we come in and people have questions, they ask for waivers, they ask for lowering their assessments, and we keep pretty busy doing all those things. And the most important thing is probably, and I think anybody who's been to the office recognizes, we really focus on customer service, and the people in the department do a great job. I can't take any credit for the wonderful jobs they do. If I have time, there are a few things that we do that people may or may not be aware of. One of the things is we keep records of all the water and sewer betterments in town, and people know when they have to deal with that, that's pretty important. We process all the boat and auto excise bills generated by the Division of Motor Vehicles. Any ownership changes in property and updates on all sales or deed changes are kept in our office. And I can say in one case, the office found a mistake my lawyer made on a property deed. So they're very, very good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Our next question for you is, does the assessor's office have the power to set the tax rate?
That's an easy one to answer. No. We do a fair evaluation of the property in town. Taxes are set by town meeting and the budgeting process, and we have nothing to do with that.
So as a follow-up to that, a Proposition 2.5 override is a permanent increase to property taxes. So if any, is there a role that the assessor's office has in a Proposition 2.5 override?
These are great questions because the answer is no. Basically, 2.5, Prop 2.5 has to do with the budgeting process, not the assessment process, and that is something that is driven over the other parts of the town hall by the selectmen, by the town administrator. And again, we assess the property and RVs and things like that for fair value, market value, but have nothing to do with setting tax rates.
Well, thank you very much. And how often does the town do a reevaluation for assessment value?
By law, we do a reevaluation every 5 years. That is required by the state. But in reality, every year we reevaluate and adjust and make changes as necessary to keep the assessments fair and relating to market conditions and properties that are changing hands and changing value as the year goes through.
And who performs that reevaluation of the assessment? Who does that?
I'll be honest, technically, I don't know on a day-to-day basis. I know Jackie and Nichols and Steve Curry manage the process. They probably do a lot of the process, although I know we do bring in outside consultants who are specialists to assist us in that process.
Awesome. And then this one was submitted by our viewers. What steps do you think must be taken to better assure that Chapter 61A is not abused?
Can I say I have no idea what Chapter 61A is? Could somebody help me?
61A is the agricultural exemption for land. What it is, it's a state law that reduces the valuation of land under agriculture. It's what most of our cranberry growers use to not be taxed as if their land were right for a subdivision, so to speak.
Right.
So I think it reduces the tax load to 25% of what the mobile tax load would be. I think that's the percentage.
That's more than I know, and I appreciate the input.
I was going to say, I can imagine that doesn't come up much if you don't know it.
I've actually read about it and had to study it, but
Yeah.
it's not something we've discussed once in the 2 years in a board meeting.
All right. Well, I mean, that's definitely helpful for them to know, too.
Right.
All right. No other questions.
Any from the back?
All right. So at this time, we'll give you 2 minutes to give your closing statement.
Okay. I guess I'll build a little on what I said before and maybe just expand on the types of things that we try to do regularly and well. I think I've mentioned one of the major pieces of what the assessors do is to make sure that we have a fair cash valuation for all the real estate and personal property in town. And I hope everybody appreciates that if they don't feel that our assessments are fair and accurate, let me give our phone number, 508-291-3160, and come on in and talk, or you can email assessor@wareham.ma.us, and we will respond promptly and quickly. I think one of the fun things, having been an assessor for a couple of years, is as people have learned that I'm on the board, they come with very interesting questions, which I research or take to Jackie and to the board, and we get back to people as quickly as we can. Not always with the answers they're hoping for, but certainly accurate questions and answers. We hear and decide requests for abatements of taxes, and we spend a lot of time doing that in our meetings and during the year. And the important thing I'd say is if you feel that you're due an abatement, go on the website or call in and find out when you have to get the paperwork done and what that paperwork is, because if you don't do it in a timely fashion, you don't have any chance of getting that abatement. So with that, I really thank you for letting me be here, and if anybody has any questions, they can get me through the office, and I'll be glad to spend whatever time is necessary to answer them.
David, thank you so much for being here
Indiana.
tonight. And so with that, we're going to take just a quick minute to transition into our next segment, and we will be right back.
Thank you.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us, and we are back with another candidate running for school committee. So tonight we have Brennan Mckiernan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, and at this time, we'll give you 3 minutes to do your opening statement.
Okay. My name is Brennan Mckiernan. I'm a third-generation graduate of Wareham High School. I graduated class of '97. I'm a lifelong resident of Wareham, and I believe that the schools are the most important way to get the town revitalized. I think that it starts with providing our children with the best opportunities possible so that they can move forward, and whether they stay in town or move out into the world, they represent the best of us. And we give them every opportunity, particularly now after the challenges that our children have faced with the pandemic, really unprecedented, with a lot of them losing a lot of opportunities that we were used to with school visits and extracurriculars. I think it's important that we focus on giving these opportunities back to these kids. And, as you'll read in the paper, as you see around town, there's a lot of our students, a lot of our children that are out there really doing some impressive things. And it's our responsibility to make sure that they have every opportunity to do all the things they want to do, like you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, and if you're all set, we'll go right into the questions.
Sure.
Great. So our first question for you tonight is, what do you think are the biggest challenges for the school district moving forward? And you'll have 2 minutes to answer that.
Sure. I think that one of the biggest problems facing our schools is actually the image of it. We have a lot of people in town that, whether it's because they've read it in the paper or just because of, gossip around on social media sites, think that their children can't get a quality education in Wareham, and I believe that's wrong. I think that you can see, if you read beyond the bad headlines of like maybe a poor MCAS scores, that the students are doing a lot of good things at the school, and they're doing it independently, and they're doing it without much support, just kind of coming up with their own things that they want to do. And I think that I think image is really a problem. I'm very much for school choice, but I would very much like it to make sure that no Wareham student ever feels they need to use it. Besides that, I think that we also need to focus on leadership. I know that our superintendent is retiring in July, and selecting a new superintendent is going to be a big deal, to kind of shape and guide where we're going to move forward as a school district for the next few years. But I think that those two, between maintaining our reputation, showing what we can do, and providing kids with those opportunities, and our leadership, I think those are the biggest things facing Wareham schools.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go off of what you said. And for context, the school committee, in conjunction with the superintendent search committee, are in the process of finding a replacement for Dr. Kim Shaverhood, who's retiring at the end of this school year. What would you like to see in the new superintendent?
I'd like to see someone with some new ideas. I think that, and this is not to make any comment on any past superintendents or anything like that, but I'd like to see that if a program isn't working, they have the flexibility to change it, to kind of adapt and move with the times, with the new circumstances that pop up. I mean, in the last couple of years, we've seen how you never know what's coming around the corner next, and you never know what new challenges are going to come up. I just want someone that's going to be flexible enough to, make adjustments as necessary, to work with people as necessary, to, to meet those challenges and really find a way to do the best by our kids.
Thank you. Now, student voice and student representation is obviously very important to me. So what will you do to help ensure students feel as though they have a say in their own education?
That's actually a very big thing. I want to make sure that we have, if there's not already in place, and I don't believe there are, but I want to make sure that we have a clear communication channel from students to all the way up to the school board, so that we're hearing their voice, whether it be through social media, whether it be through, them having a web page or something, some kind of place where students can feel that they can come to, whether they have a student representative or they provide their own ideas directly to us. I want there to be a clear channel where we can, even part of the meeting itself, be given to student representation so that students feel they can come and be a part of these meetings. I'd love to see more students at the school board meetings to come in and say, these are our concerns, because they're the, boots on the ground, as it were. Kind of people who are, our decisions are affecting them directly. So I'd like to see them have a very clear voice and an opportunity to say what they feel and provide real feedback to them, and help them guide their own education and help them have them guide us as to what we should be focusing on.
Very good, thank you. Our next question. Wareham schools offer a number of programs both during the school day and after the bell that allow students to study for advanced classes, participate in outdoor activities, etc. What issues or changes do you believe your district needs to address in its academic programs and offerings?
I think that the main thing that it needs to do is offer more, and kind of highlight them more. I think that one of the problems, like I mentioned earlier, is that a lot of parents and maybe even some students aren't aware of those programs. My son is a freshman at Wareham High School right now, and he brings home papers about programs that are coming up from time to time. I'm extremely impressed compared to what I had offered to me when I was a student to what they offer now. I think that we just need to make sure that more kids and families know about these programs. We need to put more resources behind them to make sure that every child that wants to participate can, and that includes transportation, the time, anything that they need to make sure that they can succeed in those. If we're going to offer them, make sure that people are taking advantage of them. There's no reason why they shouldn't be. And as far as what programs, I think that, again, pursuing college education is obviously important, but also I know that, especially now, trade school and, having a trade is becoming more and more prominent. And, maybe giving some kids at Wareham High an opportunity to, without having to fully go to Upper Cape or, transition to a technical or vocational school, but to have the opportunity to still, pursue some courses of learning in that area, to pick up a small trade or at least be more handy around the house would be a good thing.
So you talked about tech schools, and we have a question from one of our viewers. Keep in mind, if you have questions and you're watching at home or you're on Zoom, you can join our Zoom and submit questions through that in the chat, or if you're in the audience today, you can write the questions on the paper right over there and give them up to us.
Just a question. Somebody inquired as to whether this was on Zoom. Where can we find the Zoom link? So.
You're killing me, Pete. You're killing me.
We posted it on Facebook. We posted on Facebook in a few different groups. And is it on anywhere else? Okay, so it's on Facebook.
I'm helping Wareham?
In the Matters of Wareham group and a couple other ones. So.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Great question, though. Okay, so going back to you, our question, and we haven't fact-checked this statistic either. So, but the person submitting the question says that about 30% of WHS students are deliberately going to tech schools or Rochester or Bourne school choicing instead of Wareham High School. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm very much against it. And again, not in the parents' decision to do it. I do understand that, and I support the program of school choice, like I said earlier. But I would one of the other things I would like to do and what I've started doing, just talking to people through social media, is to find out why they feel they need to bring their student to another school, whether it's a question of just miscommunication, whether they're not feeling that their student is getting the right education, or whether they're not getting the right support for their individual challenges and needs. Whatever the issue is, I'd like there to be a lot more open communication and a lot more of a direct path from parents and even from students all the way up to the school board, so that, like I said earlier, I don't want any Wareham student to feel they need to go anywhere else. I would love every Wareham student to feel that the best education that they can get is at Wareham High School, or Upper Cape, because I know that we support them as well. And, Upper Cape was around when I was a kid as well. And for those people that want to transition to that, I would like there to be support for them, not just in the 8th grade year when, it's time for them to make the choice whether or not to go to Upper Cape or to Wareham. I'd like that to maybe start being instilled earlier, so that for people who trade is going to be an option for them, or a career path for them, I don't want it to be a default decision like, oh, I couldn't do high school, so I'm going to do trade. That's not how it works anymore. I want kids to feel that they can aspire to be a carpenter, a tradesman, a plumber, an electrician, from as young as they'd like.
Brennan, thank you so much for answering all those questions. And with that, we will give you 2 minutes for a closing statement.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say that, to anyone listening to me, you can find me on Facebook. I'd really like to hear from parents. As I'm running on the post, I'm kind of fortunate that pretty sure I'm going to get in. And I'd really like to just start now opening a path of communication from parents to the school board, so that we can really, get things going. I think that Wareham is a great town. I started a page called Wareham Helping Wareham on Facebook a few years ago. About 3,000 of you are members. I believe in this town. I believe that when we're faced with a challenge and that we come together, there's absolutely no problem we cannot overcome. And I'm proven right time and time again. Throughout this pandemic, throughout all the challenges we've recently faced, we've seen Wareham citizens come together. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, red, blue, whatever, we're all Warehamites. We all come from this town. We all grew up around here. Our parents grew up around here. Our grandparents grew up around here. Like I said, I'm 3rd generation Wareham. My son is 4th. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all neighbors. We can all work together, and I think that we need to, so that we can make this town the town that at some point we all remember. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And with that, we will take just a brief minute to transition once again into our next segment. All right. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us. I did just want to follow up on a question we had earlier about the Zoom link. So if you are watching on TV, and you're looking for a way to submit questions tonight, you'll have to join our Zoom. And we just had a couple questions about where you can find this Zoom link. So we've created a URL for that. So if you go to tinyurl.com/Wareham votes, tinyurl.com/Wareham votes, and you'll be able to access that Zoom link. It'll take you directly there. All right. And with that, I want to invite our next candidate, Margaret, running for town moderator. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Troop, for being here as well. And
course.
thank you, Mr. Smith, for organizing this, and to WCTV for doing the filming. My name is Margaret Ishihara, and I'm running for town moderator, and I'm looking for your vote on May 3rd at the town election. I have lived in Wareham since 1990. I'm a lawyer in private practice for many years, and I also have a private law office here in Wareham. I think that I live in one of the most beautiful towns in the South Coast. And yes, we have a lot of natural beauty here with the coast, the Onset Bluffs, the Little Harbor, the Lyman Reserve, all these things. But I think that the most beautiful thing about this town really is the people here. and the previous speaker, Brennan, really touched on this a bit. So what I've noticed is that when someone has a hardship, they have a fire at their house, they have an illness, they have an accident, they maybe don't have enough to eat, that the people here step up in a big way, and I think that's really wonderful. So when books are needed for the library, people donate books. When litter needs to be picked up, people show up and they pick up litter. So that is really the main reason why I'm running for town moderator. Let me just talk just briefly about my philosophy for the town moderator, and it's something that's fairly simply stated, but as those of you who are veteran town meeting attendees recognize, maybe not so simply implemented. But my philosophy is this: I want to make sure that all sides of a debate, various points of view, have a chance to be aired and be heard, so that people have the opportunity to be heard, and also so the people that are listening have an opportunity to hear the facts or the opinions that might inform their decision at the town meeting. That is not to say that that necessarily means, and this is maybe a little forewarning, that every single person gets to speak every single time they might want to speak. It's more an issue of we want to make sure that all sides are heard so that people can become informed. So I'm running also so that with your help we can maintain the respect and civility, and the previous speaker also hinted at this as well, towards each other as citizens of Wareham. We are all in this together, so I would like to see as my hopeful contribution to the town meeting to ensure that we remain civil, that we remain respectful, that we listen to each other, and then we vote. So I'm asking for your vote for town moderator, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. We have just a couple of questions for you tonight. The first one, and I know you touched on this a little bit, so if anything, are there any changes you would like to make to how town meetings are operated or conducted?
Generally speaking, no. I would say that Claire, maybe I'm not supposed to call out the previous town moderator. I think that Claire Smith has really done a great job in running the town meeting. So would I make major changes? No, I don't think so. If you're talking about, which you may be, there's a couple of petition articles on the town meeting warrant, which I think the people here are probably aware of. The one is the Saturday meeting petition article, and the other is the so-called lottery petition article. So with respect to changing town meeting to Saturdays, I'm going to hedge a little bit on that because what I saw recently is that if the goal is to get more people attending town meetings, there was a Saturday town meeting in recent memory in which many people showed up, but I think primarily because of the issue at hand. There was another town meeting very recently, which was in the evening, and many people showed up for that one, even though it was in the evening, because the issue was the Little Harbor purchase of the Little Harbor properties. So I think before we go changing to a Saturday town meeting, I'd like to see a lot more research or information on that, not just simply kind of your people's anecdotal feel for, well, there's a lot of kids' activities on Saturday, or people, are tired and they can't get to a meeting in the evening. So I think that my view on that is that something that really needs some further study and not just sort of instinctively what we might think. In terms of the lottery system, I'm comfortable with the current lottery system, but I have to say that as town moderator, ultimately it's going to be up to the voters, and whichever way it goes, that's what I'm doing. The only caveat I have with respect to the lottery system is that I think we need to make sure that the main business at hand, being the annual town budget, gets heard at the beginning of the meeting and not just randomly drawn. And my view is that under the statute, that's something that the town moderator could rule on and have that happen.
Well, you just combined two of my questions into one, so
good.
that worked very well. And unless we have, I think we have one question coming in. So we'll wait for that one. And I don't see any questions over here. Keep in mind, if you have questions you'd like to ask the candidates, you can submit them on Zoom via the chat feature. Or if you're in person attending this, you can write them at the notepad right over there, and we will review those. Sorry, I just want to review the question real quick. Okay. Completely, if you don't feel comfortable answering a question, feel free to yield your time, and that's completely acceptable. I just want to make sure that people at home are being heard, and we had this question submitted to us. So a viewer at home is wondering, has your private legal practice involved the representation of the Cranberry interests?
I'm really not clear what the cranberry interest might be. I feel a bit uncomfortable with that because it sort of slides into the area of attorney-client sort of issues.
Absolutely.
So I feel uncomfortable with that. I don't like to dodge a question, but
no, we completely understand. I agree. So I'll just ask a more general question based off of this next question, which is if there were any situations that were to present a conflict of interest to you as a town moderator, what would your approach be to that?
My approach to any conflict of interest would be to comport with the conflict of interest laws. I guess it's a general question, a general answer.
Very good. All right, and seeing no other questions, we will go to your closing statement, and you'll have 2 minutes for that.
I guess I don't have so much to say in closing. I did notice, however, that I probably neglected to give a little bit more of the nitty-gritty on my background. I attended Oberlin College and have a bachelor's degree in government. My law degree is from Boston College Law School. I have served on a number of boards and committees here in town. Most notably, I was the deputy moderator a few years back, and I actually officiated at one or two of the town meetings. And I've also served on the planning board, the finance committee, the bylaw review committee, and I'm a very active member of my church on the mission committee. So I'm hoping that you'll consider me and vote for me on May 3rd.
Margaret, I can't thank you enough for being here tonight. And with that, we will transition into our next segment and take a quick minute. Thank you again. All right, well, welcome back, everyone. We are back with our two candidates for the town clerk position for Wareham. We have Jenna Dean joining us and Michelle Bissonnette. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Troop.
So just a reminder, if you would like to rebut something that your other candidate says, you can just raise your hand and I'll notice that and write it down. And then once the other speaker is finished speaking, you'll have 30 seconds to reply. Just a reminder since it's our first contested one here. All right. And with that, Jody, do we have the order?
I believe I'm up first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So if you want to go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I'm Jenna Dean. I've been a resident of Wareham since the 4th grade. I've lived here basically all my life. I graduated from Wareham High School. I'm raising my family here. I have a 16-year-old son that is a sophomore and an 11-month-old baby who just learned how to clap. So one learning to drive, one learning to clap. I have a lot I think I can bring to the table. I am hopeful that I can say everything that I'd like to say in 3 minutes. So I'm just going to cut right to it. I've been employed with the town for 6 years now. I've been in office administrations for 15 plus years. I've been in the building department for 3 years. Previous to that, I was in the town clerk's office for 3 years. Working in 2 different departments has given me a broad knowledge on the inner workings of a municipality. I have a lot of information that I've gained from being in the town clerk's office that transferred down into the building department with me, and I feel like I have a lot from the department that I'm working in now that I can bring into the town clerk's office. Having said that, when I was in the town clerk's office, I was taught everything soup to nuts on that entire office, how it was run. I'm knowledgeable in municipal and state laws, town bylaws, zoning bylaws. I'm experienced in local elections, state elections, federal elections, town meetings. I have a knowledge of all the software that the clerk's office uses. I'm also a notary and a justice of the peace, so I can also offer that to the residents. Getting into what I would like to see move forward for the town clerk's office is kind of bringing the office a little bit up to date. There are a lot of ideas that I have that I think would really benefit the residents of the town and the office. One of them would be to implement Viewpoint Cloud. I don't know if anybody's ever pulled a building permit with the town within the past 3 years, and if you've used the online service. That's the only way that you can pull a building permit in town is through this online service. I have taken the initiative to put all of our applications on that software. I've created the application, the documents, the process flow of it, how payments are collected, everything with Viewpoint. If you look at that website, I like to take full credit for it because IT let me run with it, and I did. I think that we can put dog licensing on the town's website. I think records requests can be on there. Business certificate, public records requests. If somebody's looking for a birth certificate, a death record, that request can be made online. You can pay online. I think there's a lot of user-friendliness with doing things online, especially now going through COVID. I think a lot of people look for these online services, and I think that I can bring that forward. I would also like to bring back notary services. I think that nowadays it's really important that we provide for our residents, not take things away. I think that there's ways to implement that back in the office. I know that the office is very busy, but I think that we should be giving to our residents, not taking things back.
All right. Sorry.
I know, I have a lot to say.
Hopefully we'll
I'm
come back to
sorry.
some of that in the questions, and
That's
you'll be able to
fine.
circle back. And we'll go over to Michelle. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Michelle Bissonnette. I'm a resident of Wareham now. I've been your town clerk for 3 years. I started in 1996 in municipalities. I was a special needs paraprofessional, and then I moved to Mattapoissett's town clerk's office where I learned my basics. And I've also worked in the assessor's office. I've worked in the building departments. I've worked in Board of Health. I've done a little bit of everything. And then I worked in Marion, and I was in the town clerk's office there, and I was the assistant town clerk for 12 years under an elected town clerk that did not show up. So I did everything in that office. Then I had the opportunity to come here, and I won the election, and I have had a terrific time in Wareham. I have never had such appreciative people in all my life. I was able to run the biggest election during a pandemic for a president without any issues. We had one small hiccup, 30 minutes, and it was taken care of, no problems. I was also able during the pandemic to write a couple of grants so that I could get poll pads. So now we have poll pads to check people in, so that way you're not doing the paper thing and all that. I also bought new booths so that they would be more separated, so that they wouldn't be all together, and they could be cleaned easily. As for changing some of the things in the office, I agree with Jenna. I did try to do some of that. However, things didn't work out between finance department and us and getting things going, so it's been kind of a rocky road getting things online. And I'm especially not happy with putting vitals online as going forward, because you have people that have restricted records and there are a lot of legalities in it, so I'd rather them come to the office or do what they do now. But I would really appreciate the opportunity to be your town clerk for another 3 years. I have a great office staff. We love what we do. Donna, Christy, the three of us, three amigos. Thank you.
Am I able to rebuttal back to that by chance, or is that only during questions? Okay.
All right. Thank you both so much. And we will go into our questions. So our first question, in 2015, a body of about 150 voters at town meeting narrowly decided to keep the town clerk position as an elected position. And then again in 2020, the issue was brought up, and now again today for our most recent town meeting. So there's been talk of doing something like this again, of course, with town meeting coming up. So how do you feel about the clerk's position being appointed or elected? And we will start with Michelle.
Okay, so the one that's being proposed at the town has been withdrawn, so that won't be on there. However, I'm a very big proponent on appointed. And the reason why I say that is because of my experience that I had in Marion, where I was doing the whole job and the elected town clerk never showed up. And it was good for me in a way because I learned everything from the ground up. I had to do everything by myself, so I know the system and it works. The other thing is accountability. I mean, when you're elected, you don't have to show up. It's okay. You can take as much time as you want. It's okay. You can treat your people poorly. There's no, and it takes 75% of the people to, if you have this, to recall somebody. And that's a lot of people. We only had 73% at the biggest, presidential election we had. So it makes you accountable when you're an appointed position. It makes you accountable to the town administrator, and that person is picked by the town selectmen, so you're not voting for that person, but you are voting for the people that are hiring that person. So I am just a very big proponent on.
All right, thank you. And Jenna.
And I am the complete opposite. I feel that this position should stay elected. The reason being is I think that we're the hub, I shouldn't say we, the town clerk's office is the hub of town hall. I think a lot of people go there looking for information, and they're looking to somebody that they can trust, that they know is gonna, fulfill what they're saying. Michelle mentioned accountability. I think anybody that gets into town politics doesn't, what's the way to say this? I don't think that you run for this office if you're not going to be accountable and you're not going to show up every day. If you're not going to show up, then why would you even bother being involved in town politics? I think that regardless whether it's appointed or elected, that you do need to show up. You do need to do the job. I think that goes without saying. I think if the position is appointed, it puts control into people that have powers that may not see what residents see. And I think that the town clerk's position has been a very historical position for a long time, and I think that it should stay that way. I think that the people should have a voice in who is kind of face for the town. So I think it should stay elected. I think it gives people choice, and I think people like choice.
And,
Go ahead.
okay.
30
so,
seconds.
Just because you're appointed does not mean that you're not going to be accountable. And elected position, you aren't accountable except for the people that have voted for you. However, they're not in that office 24/7. They don't see what goes on every day. They don't see somebody that's not there. I've already stated what happened to me in Marion, and that's a perfect example. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. we have a clarification question for Jenna. Jenna, you were talking about a system called Viewpoint.
Sure.
If someone isn't comfortable with Viewpoint, how would they meet a real person or talk? What would be
Sure.
the system besides that?
So it's just a tool. The way that it works in the building department is that's the only way to file something. Clearly in the town clerk's office, it's just a tool. Michelle mentioned that she was unable to bring dog licenses on due to funding, and the fact of the matter is the program's already there. It has nothing to do with funding. It has to do with implementing it. And I think that I can do that quickly and efficiently. It just gives people the opportunity to do it online if they want. As far as vital records are concerned, Michelle was right as far as legality. It's just a request. It's a way to request the information and possibly pay for it online. For open records, restricted records, those have to be handled a separate way. But this is a tool, and why not use a tool that's available? If people don't want to utilize that tool, that's great. You don't have to. In the building department, we did have public computers available. Due to COVID, we had to take that out, but I'm very helpful. I guide people through all those applications. I know them soup to nuts. I know all the inner workings of them. So if somebody's unable to do it online, that doesn't mean you can't come into the office. We would love to have you come into the office. It's just there if you want to utilize it. So.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to clarify, it wasn't a financial thing. It's not in the budget or anything. It's just because we couldn't work it out with the finance department as far as taking credit card payments and, the like.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So my next question. Town clerk is a challenging position, and believe it or not, we do know this. And we know it requires a lot of skills to do the job right. So what qualifications do you bring to this position? I know you touched a little bit about this on your opening statement, but if you have anything else to add, now would be the time, and we will start with Jenna.
Sure. So me working in the clerk's office for those 3 years, I was trained under the previous town clerk, who was our town clerk for 20 plus years. She taught me everything. She knew that I was interested in possibly running for the position in 2019. Back then I had some conflicting feelings about work and family. I ultimately chose my family, and now I'm back here. But I'm very knowledgeable, and like I said in the beginning, with the inner workings of the office. I'm knowledgeable on the software. I think I'm a go-getter. I'm a fast learner. I'm driven. I have a lot of energy. I think there's nothing that can stop me right now. It's all reward, no risk for me. I have nothing to lose by running for this position, so I think all of the knowledge that I've gained working for the town of Wareham in the past 6 years, I think I can just run with it, and I think that I would do a fantastic job being Wareham's town clerk.
Thank you. Michelle.
Thank you. 15 years of being assistant town clerk and then 3 being town clerk. I've come up with a lot of good networking skills, and I know everybody from the state, Secretary of State's office to cybersecurity. We've been working with them tremendously for the last few months because we've been getting a lot of phishing scams, and they've been helping my office with that. I have instituted the poll pads, and that's a different system altogether, where you can take those votes or the people that have come in and what am I trying to say? Yeah, they come in and they check in and stuff, and we can take that information now, and we have all kind of reports and everything. I go to classes every 6 months through the MTCA, which is the Mass Town Clerks Association. I also am very versed with all the Access and Excels, but we deal a lot with VRIS, which is the voter registration identification system, and with the VIP system, which is the vitals, and I have ins with those as well. I've been able to come up with a lot of good contacts, and as well as with LHS, who's the people that deal with our election things. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I rebuttal back to that? So as far as the poll pads are concerned, I also have experience in those because they were actually implemented, I believe, in 2018 when I was still in the town clerk's office. So yes, those are polling pads that are used for the voters' checklist. So when you go to your polling location, rather than one of the poll workers having a long piece, pages and pages flipping through, you scroll and you find and you check. So those were actually implemented prior to Michelle taking office, and I do have experience dealing with those. As far as trainings and
That's
seminars.
time, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And implementation wasn't it. I bought them, we have them, they work. I'm sure she knows how they work, but they're great.
All right, and we're going to go to our last question. In the most recent presidential election, about 50% of young adults aged 18 to 29 voted in the election. If anything, what do you plan to do to engage young people in the town in the electoral process and encourage youth voter registration? And we will start with Michelle.
So there's one program that I've really wanted to do with the middle school kids and maybe even, elementary school kids, and I haven't been able to do it because of COVID. But I'd really like to go in and have them do the dog licenses so that they would check and they would have their own little election, which tag to pick. Do you want this shape, that shape, that shape, what color? And that would be their candidates and everything. So that way it would introduce them in a fun way to the electoral process. The other thing that I would do is when you were there in Indiana, I believe you were at one of my sessions where we went in and we signed people up, and we also signed people up. Anybody who's 16 years and older, up to 18, can pre-register for the vote. So all you have to do is go online to sec.stat.ma.us/OVR/ and you can register to vote. You can change your vote, you can change your party, you can change your address, and you can also pre-register to vote. And those are the things that I've also talked with, a lot of the classes over at the school. I'm very open to that. We've had a lot of times where I've gone there. During COVID, we had to do Zoom, but yeah.
Thank you. And Jenna?
So as far as getting the younger generation involved, I think Facebook is a huge tool. I have mixed feelings about Facebook. I think that it can be a great platform, but I also think that it can solicit a lot of unwarranted comments and information. Having said that, I think that it would be really great to get the town clerk's office to have their own Facebook page. I think that that would be a way to rope some of this younger generation in with the inner workings, with what's going on at town hall. If, the day after an election, typically the office is closed. I think that it's important to notify the town residents that, hey, you can't come in to have this done. To be honest with you, I think young kids kind of care about their town, but not really. My main drive is to help the people that are actually the older, I guess, generation, and the people that are gonna be establishing their life here. I have a 16-year-old son. He doesn't care about town stuff. I mean, I'm going to be honest, he just doesn't. However, the 20 to 30-year-olds that are having their family come here, yes, they do care about town things, and they want information, and they want it now. And they're not always going to go to the Town of Wareham website. And I'm sorry, our website is great, but it's not up to date on a daily, weekly basis. So I would really like to implement a Facebook page for the clerk's office. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so just one point. I really do think that the kids are involved. When I go to the schools and stuff, they're very good questions. They listen well. So I really don't agree with that. I think they really are interested. There's a group of them that really are. There are some that aren't, obviously, but I think for the most part they do.
Thank you. All right, and with that, we will go to our closing statements. You guys will have 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we will start with Jenna.
Okay, so just kind of circling back to some of my ideas, I think it's really important to get this information out. Again, viewpoint, I would really like to implement that. I think it's huge for our town. I think it's huge for the residents. Bringing back notary services, I think that we have a lot of older people that come to town hall every year because they need their social security documents notarized, and they don't always have the ability to go to a bank. They need that money. It's their livelihood. For us to turn them away because we're short on staff, I think is terrible. It takes a minute to sign your name to something, to verify documents. When I was in the clerk's office before, they had designated times to offer that service, and I would like to do that. I would love to work with different committees as far as preserving our town records. I think that it's really important. We do have the capability to digitalize records. I've spoken with our IT department already about that. I think it's important. I think that there are some records that could be made available if people are doing genealogy online. I would really like to make sure that processes within the office are being followed through with. Ethics certifications. I've been down in the building department for 3 years. Every 2 years, ethics certifications are to be done. During my time downstairs, I have not received any information or notification that I need to redo that, nor has a lot of people in town hall. I think that that's really important, that people get this information and that that it's brought current every 2 years. I would also like to say that I have the ability and I'm willing to attend training seminars. I would love to obtain my certification as a certified municipal clerk and then also a master municipal clerk through that IIMC. The week of May 1st, the week of our election, is actually International Clerks Week, and I think that it would be amazing to have a fresh young face for the town of Wareham. I have a lot that I can bring to the table, and vote for Jenna Dean, www.deanfortownclerk.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Michelle.
Hi. So 3 years experience here, 12 years experience at Marion. I'm well-versed. There haven't been any issues. There have been notifications sent out every other year for everybody in town hall. So, but I would just like the opportunity to continue to be your town clerk. I really do love this job. I love what I do, and I'm very versed at it. You haven't seen anything in the papers derogatory, so I would just like to say, please vote for me again. I really do enjoy working for you, and I would appreciate it. Thank you.
I can't thank you both enough for being here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, and we're going to take a minute to transition into our next segment, the 1-year spot on the select board. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us tonight for our Wareham 2022 Meet the Candidates Night. Just a reminder to those watching at home, if you have questions to submit to our candidates, feel free to join our Zoom and participate. And you can access that Zoom by going to www.tinyurl.com/WarehamVotes. And if you have questions here, feel free to write them on the pad right there and just bring them up to this table here and we will review them. All right, tonight we have Tricia Wartz, who's running for the 1-year spot on the Selectmen. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
And we have Brenda Eckstrom, who's also running. Thank you for being here. All right, and without further ado, let's get right into the opening statements. We're starting with Tricia, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening. Thank you for being here and for being on Zoom or on TV to watch us. Let me know. I tend to speak softly. Please let me know if I'm not loud enough. So I guess the thing is about the first step is to introduce myself. I'm the oldest of 6 children. The youngest one was born as a gift to me for my high school graduation. So we all grew up playing on Briarwood Beach. I have a daughter. She also grew up playing on Briarwood Beach. And she married the kid next door. The kid next door on Briarwood Beach. So today they still have a cottage there. They live a couple of towns over. And it's a nice little town to have your family in. I want to talk about my career a little bit, and I have to think about what I'm saying here because just a year ago I said a lot of this, and I don't know what you've heard and what you haven't heard. But basically, my background is marketing, and I've worked primarily in the technology industry. I've helped 3 different companies grow their businesses substantially, and in 1999, 2000 timeframe, I formed a strategic consulting business. And that business worked with technology companies and communication companies. And honestly, I thought when I started it, I would be working with small companies. But we've worked over the years with over 100 companies, and the company base included IBM and HP and Dell and AT&T and probably all the company names you've heard and a lot that you haven't. What was interesting about that industry is it changes every 9 months. So you always have to be on your feet, you always have to be agile, and you always have to look at multiple ways to get things done. In addition to opening that company, I became a board member for a not-for-profit named CompTIA. And during my time with that organization, it was a time when there was more technology available for purchase and not enough technical people to service it. So a group of us, 4 or 5 of us, got together and said, what if? What if we could figure out a way to get more people trained and to have the cost for the manufacturer to be less, because they would only then have to train on their products and not on every single technology that was in their product. We formed a certification model that today is used worldwide for creating a knowledge base for all the different technologies you use today, everything from the internet, etc. And after working with that organization and doing that work, I was inducted into the Technology Hall of Fame in 2010.
Thank you very much. And we will go to Brenda for 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Brenda Eckstrom. I've lived in town for over 25 years. My husband and I moved here right after we got married. I have 4 children that I have raised and went into Wareham schools and Upper Cape. A couple of them are on to college now, and a couple have already graduated. I myself have my master's degree in public administration from Suffolk University. I have my undergrad from Curry College in criminal justice with a politics and history minor and a human resource management certificate. I have been a selectman in the past. I was a selectman for 6 years. I have been a water commissioner. I've been on the board of assessors. I have been a cemetery commissioner. I helped found the Affordable Housing Trust in the town. And I am looking forward to being back on the Board of Selectmen. I had to take several years off due to some medical issues, but I'm better. I got a clean bill of health, so I'm ready to jump back in. And when I saw the 1-year seat coming up, I thought this is a perfect opportunity that I'm knowledgeable in the process, and so I can hit the ground running. Thank you.
Thank you both. So let's talk about that. Because of a resignation from Selectman Teitelbaum. We love you. There are 3 positions on the board now, and one of those is a 1-year term. So why did you choose to run for the 1-year selectman slot that is open, opposed to a 3-year spot? And we will go to we will go to Brenda to start.
Thank you. Well, I kind of just said a little of
Right.
it. I had actually given some thought to running for the 3-year position, and then when people pulled or were talking about pulling, I heard names that were out there, and I was very positive with a couple of them. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just wait and run next year. And then when the seat opened up, I thought, well, this is a good opportunity, because if the board does change seats, you really do need people with experience there to, continue on. So that's why I decided to step in.
Thank you. Tricia?
Well, if you can believe this, about 2.5 years ago, I had no interest in local government business. As long as my taxes didn't go too high and the road was fixed, I didn't care. And then I got involved in the No to Notice campaign, and I started really learning about what a small community and a small town government is about. And I ended up with a surprise run for Selectmen last year. And in about 3 weeks, I mean, some of the team that really helped me do that is in the room back there. In 3 weeks, we ended up with over 30% of the vote. And I got hooked on how important it is to be very active in your hometown. And if you're not, and things aren't going the way that you think, then it's your own fault. So the WRA, the Wareham Redevelopment Authority, asked me to do an outreach project for them this year, and we studied 2 subject matters. One is what should Wareham Village look like based on what our citizens think, and the second one was how do you want the town to communicate with you? It took us quite a while to get that information because outreach is not a favorite thing. Responding to outreach is not a favorite thing of many of our citizens. So we did a lot of one-on-one interviews, some group interviews, and we interviewed over 60 people with an average of 1.5 hours to 2 hours long in time. And the bottom line is communication became a really key issue, a breakpoint issue for this town. It really is. So I looked at the 1-year slot, and the 1-year slot gives me a time to not only show the work that I've, boy, I keep watching that, now I gotta stop. To show everyone what the town has said, and it gives me an opportunity to really make sure we start looking at what we do to address the communication needed between the town and its citizens.
Thank you very much. So going a little bit off of what you said, my next question, Wareham is an ever-growing community with opportunities for redevelopment and so much more. And we've looked into this recently. So what would you say is your vision for the town of Wareham? And we will start with Tricia.
Oh, I love vision questions. I mean, last year I said my vision is that it's a Cape Cod town and we should look like a Cape Cod town. But the 2 projects, the outreach projects I worked on, really had me thinking about what we should be. And the real issue is how do we want to live and how do we want the people within the town to understand this is what it's like to live here, and people outside of the town say, wow, that's how we live. That's why we would want to live there. And, you know, a lot of that has to do with taking advantage of our environment, looking at how we portray ourselves, how we take care of our natural resources, how we use them, how we even advertise them. How do we make our environment and what we have become our vision? And then what we do in town really surrounds what that vision is. And I think we can go a long way to becoming known as the very special place we are, and we can go a long way to helping our citizens who are already here to understand what we are and to take more advantage of what we have in natural resources. I see a new person added to working on Otis, Onset Beach, a Stewart. He seems to have incredible background, and that background can help us. We can leverage what that person brings and leverage it into something that's substantially significant for the town, and we can work it through everywhere from the grammar schools on up to the elderly. So that's my vision.
Thank you. And Brenda?
Well, my vision for the town is somewhat similar. I think we have 54 miles of coastline. And I think that we need to let people know that we are a beach, seaside community. We go from about 25,000 people during the off-season to over 40,000 in the summer. And so I don't know if it's here, and I know that the selectmen have a similar thing, but I had drawn years ago the map of Wareham with a little star, and I said, Wareham, it's Cape Cod without the bridge, which I think is the same idea. I know that the selectmen have said something similar to it. And I think that that is a huge thing that we need to do. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so let's talk about public services and public safety and all that, because obviously it's a very pressing, there's a lot of pressing issues with public services in our town right now. So I'm going to go to a question we have from the audience, who said, public safety matters to me and many voters. I recently learned our Wareham Police Department has only 44 sworn officers. This person inquired with a selectman about their thoughts on WPD staffing, and he was told, or they were told, that WPD needs more officers. And when asking the chief about his thoughts, the chief of police, Korea, he said that they needed additional officers as well, and expressed his concern that recent police reform legislation would hinder his ability to hire summer auxiliary officers to handle the summer population surge that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. So, with all that being said, if elected, what would you do, if anything, to address or to assess and address necessary WPD staffing and address that need for police officers? So you'll both have 2 minutes, and we will start with Brenda.
Okay, well, the first thing I would do to address the issues, because we're always told by the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen that, oh, we don't have the money for anything. We don't have the money. Well, we have the money when we want it. We have the money to give our administration, department heads, 10% raises, but we don't have enough to put another police officer on. I think that's a disgrace. I would reevaluate where we're spending our money. And I would look at not just the police need more. I mean, the police, if I remember correctly, they are second to maybe Brockton or New Bedford, second in as far as the crimes, as far as the arrests and things like that. And when you have that and you're doing it with half as many officers, there's an issue. And so I think that, and I understand that our town is smaller than theirs, but we definitely need it. I also think there's an issue with municipal maintenance. We only have 11 people in municipal maintenance, and then we wonder why things aren't picked up, or the streets aren't plowed and things like that. And I think that we need to look at where we're spending our money, and instead of just taking the line of, oh, we don't have the money. We have it when we want it for things, and I think we need to look at where we're spending it and start putting it in the right places. We're public servants. Whether we're paid or not paid, we're public servants, and I think people have to start acting like that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tricia, just a reminder, the question was, if elected, what would you do, if anything, to assess and address necessary WPD staffing issues and address that need? And you'll have 2 minutes.
The question about police is, excuse me, one that's near and dear to me, and it's not anything I've ever talked about to people in the town. My daughter's father is a retired policeman. Her grandfather was a retired policeman. Her brother is a policeman. I have 2 cousins who are policemen. They live a life that can be very good one day, and they can lose their life the next day. So it's really important, one, that we're staffed properly. It's as important that they're trained properly. And it's even more important that we have the accoutrements around them that encourage safety in place. So, for example, when we were looking recently at Wareham Village, I just heard repeatedly that it's not safe there. There's not enough lighting. I don't feel safe when I'm back there. So we definitely need to find the money for police, but we definitely need to make sure they have the training that they need and the time to do the training. And above all, we have to really look at our locale, and is it structured to encourage safety? Does it work with the police instead of against them? That's it.
And if I could just, I agree on that, and I just wanted to clarify that where Tricia was talking about it, where onset and the areas that aren't safe, if anyone just saw recently about the issues with the lighting, things like that, that are, you know, small things that can make big, can take care of big issues. And those are the things, like financially, that we have to look on. And also, I think that it's a shame that the police lost their certification, and I'd like to see them try to get that back again.
Thank you. And let's talk more about this. So, in a municipality with shrinking sources of revenue from the state level and the town level, how do you expect the town to maintain vital services for the next few years? And we will start with Tricia.
Ow. So one thing that I do not have a lot of knowledge about right now is our budget, how it's structured, how we decide where we spend money, what we do with it. So for me, I honestly would need to be educated on that, because I'm not willing to say this is what I do to it now if I don't know what it is now. But it is a number one issue to look at, and we can say we can increase taxes. I mean, everyone loves it when you say we can increase taxes. But what are the grants we can get? What are the other types of state-level programs that we can leverage? I bet that we do a lot of that. Possibly there's way to do more. And if there isn't, then we ultimately look at what we have to do from a budget perspective and from a tax perspective. It's that simple. You know, how important is safety? How important are the police that help keep us safe?
Thank you.
Well, one of the reasons that Tricia doesn't know the budget, and it's not her fault, it's none of us know it. And the reason why is because years ago, they used to put the budget in the warrant, and people could read it. And now we just have a placeholder, and you don't get to see the budget until the night of town meeting. That's wrong. People should be able to look at it and say, wait a minute, why are we spending 20% more in this department? Excuse me, Mr. Pigeon, Mr. Gilberti, would you like to come up and answer these? Would you, please? I'm sorry, they keep talking. Thank you, I'm
Sorry
sorry.
about that.
That's all right. I'm sorry, see, anyway, okay. As far as the budget, we need to be able to see it. People should be able to see it. We've always been able to in the past. And I think as far as money, Tricia's absolutely right. However, I was just on a Zoom call with Senator Markey's office the other day, and we were talking about the different grants and opportunities that no one in Wareham has applied for, that there isn't anything. So she's right that we need to apply for those things. We also need to look for other ways to earn or get money. One of them is we have looked at with the Deacon's Community Center. One of the things that we've looked at is doing a solar canopy. Lease the land for a solar canopy. For that parking lot, it would bring in revenues of probably over $40,000 a year. We have the high school, we have the middle school, we have the town hall parking lots. We're talking this could bring in enough money to put 2 more police officers on the street of passive income. So
Thank
those
you.
are the type of things we need to do.
Thank you. So going off of what you said, obviously a hot topic in town right now is the possibility of turning the former Deacon's School into the Deacon's Community Center. So this is a question from the audience, or this is a question from our viewers, who asked you to explain why or why not you think the community center is a good idea, and how how you would support the idea of a Deacon's Community Center as a select person. And we will start with Brenda.
I'm 100% for the community center, and I think how we support it, the steering committee and the informal committee have done a fantastic job finding resources. We have, as most people are aware, we have Head Start that is right now currently in the Oak Grove School. They're looking to expand. Oak Grove School doesn't really have the area for them to expand, and they want to get on with creating their historical legacy at the school. So it brings up a prime opportunity for the town to be able to get Head Start to expand over there. And the finances that it would bring in, and the federal money that it would bring in, that would do the upgrades and the repairs on the school, on the areas that they'd be using, would be fantastic. There are several things that are out there, and I don't know all of them, but the list of them that I've seen or that I've heard of at the going to the steering committees on Zoom, they have plenty of opportunities that would be able to support the center.
Thank you. And Tricia, 2 minutes.
I also am very for the Deacon's project. In fact, the first time I saw it was when Jim Eunice, who I believe is the original thought person behind this, brought me on a tour of the Deacon's school and visually mapped out how things would lay out. And that happened before I ran for Selectmen last year. So the thought of how to use it and the thoughtfulness of how to use it has been going on for a long time. One of the reasons, there's several reasons I think it makes sense. First of all, it's got a brand new kitchen in there just as big as can be. It can support Meals on Wheels. It can support meals out to the elderly. It can support, at one point they were looking at multiple studio homes in there and for a part of it for elder people. It could support that type of environment. They were also looking at putting in a daycare or a place for children to go after school. Now, one of the really pro things about putting the elderly and the school-level children together is it encourages the growth of both of them. It makes for a surrounding total environment. In terms of the physical place, when you start to think about putting the elderly near there or the COA going in there, it's not very far for them to take a van to go shopping, to get medical health care. They're close to Rosebrook. They're close to Walmart. They're close to Wareham Village. They're close to the things that they need to get on a daily basis, which they're not necessarily right now. So many, many reasons for that to be a positive play for the town, and I hope it just continues.
Thank you. Our last question for this segment, it's just a general question, so I'll just state it, and Tricia, you'll be the first to answer. So, do you see areas where changes could happen to make residents feel more valued? And you'll have 2 minutes.
That's very interesting. The question is, what is the meaning of valued? So, are you talking about them feeling valued in their home neighborhood? Are you talking about them feeling valued in their church environment? Are you talking about them being valued in participation with the town? Are you talking about them feeling valued when they shop or when they're home alone? The bottom line is I think a lot can happen. I think our COA does a lot to make that happen. The COA in particular runs projects where they'll outreach to the school and the school will work with elderly. I think we can do something even more for them when we go back and talk about how town hall is structured, how the town meetings are structured. Today, because the meetings are so long and they're at night, many of the elderly cannot get out to give input or in some cases vote. They're a large part of our community, And in order to make them feel part of us, they should be able to get out and vote. They should feel comfortable with it. It should be on time for them. We need to do things like run classes for them on how to use Zoom so that they can participate in what we do and how we make decisions. And then lastly, we can be there for them. Can we adopt a few? That's it.
Thank you. And Brenda?
Well, years ago, at the Board of Selectmen, what we would do in the summer is we would go out and have our selectmen's meetings in different areas in town. We'd go to the Swiss Beach Association building, Dudley Brown, Rose Point, and we would have our meetings out there so that people would, come to them, especially if they're at their association meeting. And then afterwards, once the meeting was over, there were 5 selectmen, a town administrator there. So guess what? The neighbors had our ears. So you'd talk to one, would take notes, and would be able to address the issues. I also think that one thing that we used to do is a half hour before selectmen's meetings, we used to have one selectman come here with the town administrator. So anyone that wanted to come and talk to us about a problem could do it. What that did is it did a couple of things, is that, one, there are a lot of people that don't like to be on camera. So they don't want to come up and sit in front of a board of 5 people plus the town administrator and ask a question, because they don't even know if the question they're asking, it may not be, the right question, or they're getting nervous over it. So this way they can do it not on camera. And then there's a selectman there as well as the town administrator, so that there's no question that, their request or their complaint was heard. And then it can be followed through and addressed. Another thing is, I think that we were talking about getting people involved, more involved. On this town meeting warrant, I proposed to have our town meetings on Saturday. Because I think.
Time. And
thank you.
We do have closing statements, so if you want to touch on that a little bit in just a couple minutes. And we'll start with you for the 2 minutes closing statement.
Thank you. I love the town of Wareham. It has been a wonderful place for me to raise my children. It's been a wonderful place for my husband and I to be our retirement community when that comes to be. As I said, I have proposed Saturday town meeting so that it's during the day, more people can come, people can plan. And I think that trying to get people more involved, I believe accountability, communication, accessibility, these are all the things that we need to push forward. And I would appreciate your vote on May 3rd. Anything more you want to learn about me, you can go to www.brendaeckstrom.com. And any questions, feel free to put them in there, and I will get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. And Tricia, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
I want to go back for just a half a second to when I mentioned that I was part of a group that created a certification process. And that process today, that organization brings in over $600 million of not-for-profit today. Can you hear me? Sorry. I told you I talk soft. You had me the point where I was relaxed. So if I go back, I want to go back to thinking about, and can we restart my time since you couldn't hear me? Okay.
Give you some time back, yeah.
And again, that work funds a not-for-profit at the rate of $600 million a year. It puts 10% of that into education fund to train returning vets, inner city kids, people with learning disabilities. I started that about 30 years ago, and I want to bring it home here. I've told some of you this story. As I went into Morse Lumber when I was going to redo my kitchen, and I'm ordering cabinets, and I'm sitting across the desk as the man's writing out the order, and on the corner of the desk is how to study for A+ and Network Plus certification. And he had no idea I had anything to do with that, and I asked him what this is, and he said, "It's my way to a better life." Sorry. So when I look at this 1 year, I want to focus on communication. I want our citizens to feel open to reach out and to feel like they're going to get an answer. I want them to start to feel as a partner with the town, and I want to say I remember when I helped start that.
Thank you both so much for being here tonight. Best of luck. And with that, we will transition into our final segment of the night, the 3-year Selectmen seats. We'll be right back after this short break. All right. Thank you all for joining us tonight and sticking with us. We are in our last segment of our candidates night tonight, the Selectmen candidates for the 3-year spot on the Board of Selectmen, and there are 2 open spots and 4 candidates. Our candidates tonight, we have Jared Chadwick joining us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We have Ronald Bessie joining us,
Thank you for having me.
of course, and Jody Santagate. Thank you for being here. And Jim Muniz. I couldn't get that out for some reason. Thanks for being here, Jim. All right. We will go into your opening 3-minute statements, and we will start with Jared. You have 3 minutes.
Do I have to press push or is this all? All right. All right, sounds good. All right, good evening, everyone. I'll give you guys a little history about me and what I hope to accomplish if elected. My name is Jared Chadwick. I've been a resident of Wareham now on and off since 2008, becoming a permanent resident in 2015 after buying a house on Glen Charlie Road. I'm originally from Nantucket, and I fell in love with this town when I met my wife, who's originally from here. I have over 20 years of experience in the fire service and over 17 years of service in emergency medical services, including working for Wareham EMS in 2014 and 15. I have also been involved with various youth organizations in the town of Wareham since 2014. My wife and I have decided to raise our 2 boys in this town because of its location and natural beauty it has. It has multiple business locations that accommodate anyone and everyone, and yet has the small town home feeling where you can walk down the street and be greeted with a smile and a nice hello. So the reason I've decided to run for Selectmen is because I feel that there are 3 things that are sticking out big to me. I'm starting to see a huge decline in things to do for our youth. Most recently that we've seen is we've lost the dirt bike track, and we've also lost within the last couple of years the Boys and Girls Club. I'm currently seeing families leave Wareham because of schools, sports, and other necessities young families need to thrive in our community. I would like to find a way to bring back a recreational department to help maintain our various parks and keep our beaches clean and properly maintained. Another thing I would like to help with is I would like to see East Wareham and Onset brought back to a prosperous state by fixing the roads and the sidewalks. Also figuring how also figuring out how we can get rid of multiple dilapidated, unsafe buildings in town. Lastly, my biggest concern for our town is our public services. Our police and EMS are understaffed and under-equipped. On the EMS side of things, our EMS system does over 5,000 medical calls a year with 2 ambulances staffed with an EMT and a paramedic, or a paramedic and a paramedic. We have also that's right, we do 5,000 runs a year. We also do have an EMS director who has his own vehicle as well. Comparing to a town of Dennis, for who I work full-time as a career firefighter, we do about 5,000 runs a year as well, but that's with combined EMS and fire. More than 3/4 of our calls are EMS. We have 4 ambulances for a town that has less year-round residents, pays less in taxes, and has a small area to cover. With 2 stations. With a shortage of staff and equipment, Wareham EMS has to turn to mutual aid for assistance. Working part-time for Marion Fire EMS as a part-time firefighter paramedic, we respond multiple times a week, resulting in a loss of revenue and, most importantly, a delay of care for the residents and the people in our town.
Thank you. And we will go to Ronald.
Good evening, residents of Wareham. Thank you for having me here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and talk a little bit about who I am and what I believe I can bring to this town. First, I'm a father of 5, ranging from my oldest is 14 and my youngest is 19 months. Where I go with that is I am highly invested in the youth in this town, not just because I have kids, but I believe that is the future of where we're going to go as a town. If we don't have kids, the town doesn't grow. We just become smaller and smaller, and it speaks to where we lose a lot of things from financial ability to do things because less people means less money. So I serve currently on the Wareham Conservation Commission. I am also on the Open Space Committee and on the Solar Bylaw Study Committee. What that says is I am very ingrained in what I believe are some highly important issues here in town. I don't even know how many generations I can go back. Talking about police department, talking about emergency services. My Uncle Harry was the very first harbor master here in Wareham. My Uncle Freddie was police chief here in Wareham. So my family has a history here, whether it's in some type of capacity in the town or whether it's just having businesses here in town. I'm excited to be back here in town. I was born and raised in New Bedford, but needed to make a change for my family. And we made that decision back in 2019 and bought a beautiful home down in the Swifts Beach area. Like I said, we're excited to be here. And I just believe that, the vision that I have here in town is a long-term vision. It's not just something to put a Band-Aid on. I believe that we have some issues here in town that aren't going to change overnight. The old adage, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to take time, but I'm here for the long haul. I don't plan on moving my family anywhere else. Like I said, my youngest is 19 months, and I plan on seeing her graduate from our wonderful school system we have here in Wareham. I'm excited for the opportunity to talk about some of the issues here tonight, some of the questions that are asked. I'm excited to be able to hopefully put an answer on and get some more understanding about who I am and what my long-term vision is for this wonderful town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Jody, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Jody Santagate. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'd just like to give... My mic's not on. Oh, it was green.
Yep, there you
Okay.
go. And we'll start your time over. Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry about that little technical difficulty. My name's Jody Santagate. I am the mother of 3 and the grandmother of 1. I've lived in Wareham now about 22 years. I brought my family here from Carver because it was a very diverse community compared to neighboring Carver, and that was something that, I think is an asset to have as a community. My father lives here. He lives in Wareham Housing. I brought him here 6 years ago, as well as my uncle. He is a resident at Tremont Nursing Home. I brought him here from Beverly. So I'm not going anywhere. In my 22 years of living here, I've sat on the Head Start Policy Council. I've implemented policies for them that they're still using today. I was part of the Read to Me program. I was a team mom for Wareham Little League, and then as my children grew, I went to the Wareham Tigers in 2006. I was a team mother for many years, and then I got on the executive council, the executive board. I was a secretary, and I was part of the group that brought the program from Hockomock over to Old Colony, which they're currently at now. I helped rewrite the bylaws. I did run for selectman a few years back, and at the time I just thought running off of all of my volunteer experience in town was enough. But after losing, I did some thought, and I realized, volunteering for a community is not enough. You have to have some sort of baseline in government, you know, you need to know the day-to-day operations. So I've been attending over the summer and the fall, I've been attending various online seminars thanks to Zoom. I was the lead petitioner at the fall 2020 fall town meeting for Article 19, implementing that Zoom meetings be allowed to continue beyond the pandemic. I didn't get a lot of support from the powers that be, but the town stood behind me. They voted it through, and then it passed recently at the Attorney General's office. So because of me stepping forward with that, Zoom is going to continue for those who cannot participate for whatever reason. Currently, I am the clerk at the Council on Aging, but I go there just because I bring my father and my granddaughter there. It's the facility. The COA needs to definitely be moved, but the people there, you know, they're great people. I've decided to run again for the Board of Selectmen because we need a different perspective. We need outside-the-box thinking. I already have branches with the elderly. I have branches with the youth. I'm connected to the Kendricks House. I bring the residents of the Kendricks House to the pollings every time we have an election. I bring them to town meeting. I sit and have lunch with them. So I'm already well connected. I don't know everything, but I'm a fast learner, and my attendance record is flawless. And when I give of myself, I give 100%, and thank you.
Thank you very much. And Jim, we will go to you for your opening statement.
Thank you. Hello, everybody, and I appreciate being here. I was born in Bridgewater, born and raised there. I've lived in Wareham for 40 years, and I'm completing my first term as selectman. I'm presently a voting committee member for the Affordable Housing Trust and also the Regional Refuse District. I'm also on a liaison for multiple boards. Like the previous speaker, I took a number of the webinars offered through the Mass Municipal Association, the Association of Selectmen Association, Division of Local Services, Finance, Gross, Planning, 40B, Affordable Housing, Communication, Future of Virtual and Hybrid Public Meetings, Legal and Policy Implications, Municipal Police and Community Engagement. I'm familiar with the town charter, the bylaws, the municipal processes, and I have an increased understanding of Mass General laws. I ran for select person because I couldn't seem to get on any committees, and so now I've gotten my just due, I guess. I worked at Bridgewater State College for 40 years. I've been retired 6. I tend to plan things, that's why I could kind of get done early. And during my time there, I was chief steward for 2 different unions, president of another union. I had experience in contract negotiation, enforcement, local and state bylaw rewrites, arbitration, I took programs in arbitration, team building, retirement dealing. I'm a graduate from Bridgewater State College. And while I was there, I did budget procurement, assisted in grants, inventory control, teaching, learning, supervision. I was a member of the Wareham Land Trust Board of Directors and its president. When I was with them, I did open space protection, smart growth, plan development programs at different places. Issues and goals, community center, DECUS. I started taking people there last February, I think it was. Just a few people at a time to see how it resonated. It seemed to take off and grew on its own, which I think is a great thing, and I think we should follow that. Senior affordable housing we need to work at. You know, we have to consider growth and development. And as a previous speaker said, you know, we need to look at infrastructure, roads, drains, closed bridges, town-owned buildings. Where's the money come from? Is there an elephant in the room? You know, where are you going to get the money? Staffing, in a number of departments. So, you know, then you look at handicap accessibility, another thing, expanded open space, recreational opportunity for all. It provides low-cost outdoor recreation, jobs, tax revenues, protects the environment, natural resources, habitat, lessens nutrient load and global warming.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's all right. I was almost done.
Like I said, hopefully we'll be able to touch on some of the points you might have missed in some of these questions. So a lot of you brought up really, like I was just saying, a lot of you brought up really good points in your statements. So my first question, a lot of you talked about youth, the elderly. According to 2020 census data, 15.1% of our town's population are under the age of 18, 26.5% are above the age of 65. If elected, what would your plans be to help the youth and elderly in this community? And we will start with Ronald for 2 minutes.
Thank you. So, like I said in my opening statement, youth is a very important piece of town growth. But with that, it's not to say that we need to forget the seniors and the older folks in this town, because they're the folks that have kept the town running for as long as the town has been here. So we'll start with the youth. There's a lot of opportunity in town. You know, I am currently on the board for the Wareham Tigers, and I got to spend Sunday at their flag tryouts. It was fantastic to see, because obviously we've gone through a unprecedented pandemic where it's really not allowed a lot of things to happen. So it was really good yesterday to see. I believe we had upwards of 185 kids come out and try out, which is fantastic, which is a lot higher than in the last several previous years. So I got to sit there and really think about, what our town's going to look like in 20 years. And a lot of those kids that were there are hopefully going to be what this town is made up of. A very diverse group of kids came out. So the diversity in town, I believe, will be really strong. And I believe that the only way that we can continue to grow is to foster these children and these kids to understand what Wareham is about and where we want Wareham to be in 20 years. With that being said, there's a lot of opportunity for our seniors in town. I've heard from a previous speaker, the Council on Aging definitely needs a new home. Where that home is, I think there's some good studies that could be had and trying to find some feasible ways to potentially move them somewhere else in town. But we'll just have to wait and continue to do some studies on that and see where we end up.
Thank you. And Jody.
Well, I come from a family that when we have children, we bring them to the polling place from diapers. And my granddaughter's 19 months, and she's already been to the polls with me since she was born. So that's just something that my family does. But when I was with Head Start, one of the policies that I implemented was that we would, the kids, they would start voting on little things, colors and different things, and I would send home letters to the parents to educate them how to register, if they needed a ride when it was time to get to the election, we would set that in place. Right now, on Thursday, I'm actually going to be with two other people from the Deacon's Foundation. I'm going to be hosting a Zoom with the two civics classes that are in the 8th grade. I've worked that out with Mr. Palladino because I want the youth to know things that I was never taught in school. Like, I didn't know about citizens petitions. I didn't fully understand democracy. Fortunately, my grandparents spoke to me and taught me as I was older a little bit more, but I believe in each one teach one, so a little bit of information from each of us, if we can just pass it on to someone else, it doesn't matter who they are, they'll get some knowledge and they'll grow. I'm with the Council on Aging, and we already have it set up where if somebody needs a ride to town meeting or if they need to get to the election, please contact Missy and we will get you a ride, and that would be by me or somebody else. I do think that the town could be doing a little bit more in having transportation set in place where people shouldn't even have to reach out. They should be going to Wareham Housing and the various housing authorities where people don't usually drive, and having transportation already set in place, and that's something that I would address if elected as selectman, because lack of transportation should not hinder anybody's ability to participate in democracy.
Thank you very much. And Jim? Definitely. Okay. Sorry. Hold on. Okay. According to 2020 census data, 15.1% of our town's population are under the age of 18, and 26.5% are above the age of 65. If elected, what would your plans be to help the youth and elderly in this community?
Well, with the youth, we provide, oftentimes we provide space for them to utilize.
Is your mic on?
Playing fields. With the youth, we provide, at present, we provide playing fields. Another group is looking for some space, and I think we're willing to accommodate, and as the Finance Committee had mentioned, we probably do best to do it in steps, and that was last year. And, also they use buildings in town, and we might just charge them for the utilities, and sometimes we don't charge them anything. So we're doing some support with the elderly. I think it would be nice to give them a better space. They had asked for a van a couple of years, and they took it off of the request last year. I think I saw at the one of the marijuana host public outreach programs last week that that was on one of the things that they'd considered donating if they got established here. So that would be a step. We need to support all the groups how we can, the youth and the elderly, but there's only so many dollars to go around. So what we can do it with is probably space, support, and just give them some support. That's all.
Thank you very much. And Jared?
So the biggest thing I've ever, is this on? Oh, there we go. The biggest thing I've ever been taught is respect your elders. And honestly, I think what we should be doing, or what I would be doing, is I want to teach our youth to take care of our elders. If we do get a center together, the youth should be in there learning from the elders about how the town is run, about how everything needs to work, the history of the town, so it doesn't just die and disappear. At the same time, they can bring in the little knowledge of the new stuff that they're learning, this youth is learning, and share it with the elders of these places. I think it's, in my personal opinion, it's time to take the two, youth and the elders or seniors, whatever you want to say, and put them together. Put them together for help and knowledge all together. I keep repeating myself, but senior citizens have been through it all. They've seen how the stuff works. They've been in the trenches. It's get to know them. That's one of my favorite things to do, is to go to, my father used to call it the old man's club. You go down and sit and have breakfast with them all and listen to the stories and listen to how things used to be. And they could provide, ways to fix things. So I would like to see everyone coming together to work together to prosper.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Our next. Yep. If you wanted a rebuttal, you just raise your hand and I'll recognize you for 30 seconds. Yep. Go ahead.
Those are some good points the previous speaker raised, and that's the idea about the community center, where you bring the youth and the elderly and other groups together. And that's why it would be important to support that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Our next question. Chapter 40B, subsidized housing, makes up about 7.5% of housing in Wareham. How do you feel about 40B subsidized housing coming into Wareham? And if elected, what would you like to see in regards to 40B housing? Jody, you'll go first.
Well, this question, I've already been asked several times by people because I kind of have mixed emotions. I'm not against 40B. I have a lot of family, friends that live within 40B, but looking at the current situation of the town and how we seem to be financially strapped, I worry if even beyond 40B, just additional apartment complexes in general were to be built, that's going to bring in more children. How are we going to fit them in our schools when our budgets are already tight. That's going to bring in more families, probably more crime. So it's kind of, to me, an open-ended question, because if Wareham was in a financially better situation, I would say great. But in the current state that we're in financially, I worry. And if we do have a 40B developer, I would like to suggest an idea like that outside of their project, they have to donate a certain amount of money to the school each year, or put money into the police to offset the costs of what's going to happen when we have more children in the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim.
How's that, better? 40B and affordable housing in general. And it's a reality. Sometimes people need help. And the state kind of mandates it on the 40B side, but on the other part, we can work to have local action and local initiative programs to kind of choose and help offset the number of affordable subsidized housing inventory counts, which is the 40B count the state uses, that is more beneficial to us, or something we embrace more so. You know, when they come in, it's 25% of the units have to be affordable, 100% count. We have something that we put on the, I think it was fall town meeting, was just approved in December. Hopefully we'll work out the kinks, and interestingly, someone contacted us today, and they wanted to know what the process was in order to, you know, application process, and truthfully, we have not implemented that. And the Board of Selectmen are part of that process, so we need to work with inspectional services to get that rolling, in case, so when people inquire, we can give them some response. You know, it's a reality, and deal with it the best we can and try to do friendly, affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Jared?
I understand we need affordable housing, but honestly, in my personal opinion, I don't think it's something we can talk about until we fix the current state of our public services as they are right now. Like I said earlier, with 5,000 runs a year on 2 ambulances is too much. I couldn't imagine adding more housing and not be able to cover it. Especially to the point where you might end up having surrounding towns canceling mutual agreements, and then we're not able to get to these 911 calls. So that's where I believe until those are fixed, I don't think we can even talk about them.
Thank you. Ronald?
So I think the key word in the entire discussion is infrastructure. Schooling, emergency services. I 100% support having affordable housing, low-income housing. Not everybody has the ability to, especially in today's markets, to pay $1,500 for a studio apartment. It's an unfortunate reality that we live right now with the housing market, but it's very important that we really look at the infrastructures what we currently have, and our feasibility to change those infrastructures, because infrastructure changes cost money. We've heard previous speakers talk about budgets, finances, so it's very important that if we're going to have some of these affordable complexes, is that we really look at the part that people don't really see, and that's the infrastructure of the school systems, the amount of kids that might come, the water, the getting the kids through the processes, getting if there's an issue, getting an ambulance there or getting a police department there. So it's very important that we just look at the infrastructure of everything and not just one particular section of what affordable housing or low-income housing would bring, but looking at all aspects of the infrastructure from the top to the bottom, and if we can support it, and if we can't, what can we do to make changes so that we can support it?
Thank you very much.
Can I
Go
follow
ahead.
up on these previous speakers? On 40B, if we don't hit that, if we're not at that 10% threshold, we don't have a lot of choice. Developers can come in and kind of have the way. Once we hit that, then we don't have to. There's also some other things we can do. We've done a housing production plan, waiting to send that into the state. And you hit these other points and you don't have to do hostile 40Bs. You could do friendly 40Bs. So we need to hit that. We need to work towards that goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My next question is about public services. With all the requests for better public services in town, I mean, we have 1, 2, 3 questions right here that our viewers have submitted tonight about public services, whether it's the roads being repaired, potholes, public safety, policing. With all these requests for better services in town, would you support a Proposition 2.5 override for operational purposes, which would be a permanent increase to property taxes by 2.5%? And we will start with Jim on this one.
You know, if you want to see what's on my screen right here, it says Proposition 2.5 override, a permanent increase in property taxes. It must be approved by the voters. I was looking at that while I was outside listening. So it's a consideration. It has to be voted on ballot once it was proposed and gets put on the warrant. Would the town have the stomach for it? I don't know. Is it a consideration? Yes. Again, the voters would be the ones to approve it or not approve it. And you know, I'd be willing to take a look at it. I'm not looking to pay more taxes, but you know, the values of the homes and where our tax rate when 2.5 started and the growth, I mean, we're either going to be stuck where we are or we have to do a little adjustment in order to meet some of the requirements or the requests or desires of what the town wants. You can't have it both ways. You can't have these added services or increased services without the funding to do it, unless you cut somewhere else. So I would consider it. And again, town meeting would vote on it, would put it on the ballot, and it'd be up or down, just decided by the voters of the town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Jared?
So I would consider it only after looking through the budget in its entirety and hard. And on top of that, for the 2.5 override, I would want to make sure everything was labeled out into the last penny of where it would be spent for the town. So everything's right there out in the open. And then, yeah, I would consider it.
Thank you. Ronald?
So I think everything is open for discussion. I don't agree nor disagree with it. I think that there's some more research and study and dialogue that should happen about it. But my concern with the Proposition 2.5 override is some people may be able to afford it, but those that are on fixed incomes, such as our seniors, we talk about, are we going to make our town not affordable to them? Are they not going to be able to own their homes anymore? Are they going to have to sell? Are they going to have to leave? So it's a very, very touchy subject that could force people to have to move from a town that we're trying to grow. So I agree there should be a discussion about it, but I think there's other ways that we could increase the revenue here in town. You know, a previous speaker talked about dilapidated buildings. Well, what if we got those buildings back up and rehabbed and got them back on the tax roll, got that money back in? There's a lot of opportunity to bring additional revenue into town without necessarily having to make the people of the town pay for it. I get it would have to go to a vote, even if it was something that was decided to be done, and that the voters of town would have to approve it anyway. But I'd be very skeptical and cautious that it could potentially have a negative impact for a certain group of people in our town. So the discussion, yes, but I think it's tough to say a yes or no right now. There's the discussion needs to happen, but I'd be very weary of driving a group of people out of town just because we need additional funds, and I think we could find other ways to potentially get it.
Thank you very much. Jody.
Would you mind repeating the question, please?
Absolutely. So, okay, so with all the requests for better services in town, and as I said, I have 3 questions about town services right here, about the state of our roads, public safety, potholes, town hall accessibility. With all these requests, would you support a Proposition 2.5 override, which would be a permanent increase in property taxes for operational purposes?
Okay, well, as Board of Selectmen, that's something that I would have to do more research on. I would seek input from the taxpayers and the people in the community. I definitely believe that we could be looking in other areas, specifically grants. There's money out there to be had if we would just take the time to look. We need to go through the budget line by line with a fine-tooth comb. And even beyond that, what about debt exclusion? We might have to look at that. So off the top of my head, no, I wouldn't, but I can't say for certain until I research more. But the people need to understand that the Board of Selectmen can only make a recommendation. It all comes down to the people coming out to town meeting and utilizing their right to vote and voting either way. So even if I did say yes, or even if I said no, ultimately it comes down to everybody at home watching and listening and making sure that if that is a decision to be made, they attend town meeting and vote on it.
Thank you. Let's talk about solar. I feel like in the past year or two, we've heard so much about solar farms and solar energy coming to Wareham. So solar energy and the associated solar farms and sites are a key issue for Wareham as well as the state. What is your stance on solar farms and solar sites and solar energy coming to Wareham? We will start with Jared.
Thank you. So once again, solar, I'm all for clean energy. I understand we need it. We need to figure something out. Do I want to tear down forests? No. That's areas where my kids are playing. That's where I like to walk sometimes. I don't want to tear down stuff. I would love to see, like I believe somebody said here earlier tonight, I'd like to see it in the parking lots. I'd like to see it in places that aren't going to be disturbing our nature, the areas where we walk our animals and stuff like that. So I am for it, but let's think about it and do it the right way and not destroy stuff to make, green energy.
Thank you. Ronald?
Solar. 2 minutes, that's it. We could talk about this for a long time. There's been a lot of study over the last dozen, months and months and months and months and months. Solar in general is good, put in the right places. Do I believe that we need to destroy the beauty and the nature that we have to get it? No. Do I believe there are good places in town for solar? Yes. There's been a lot of study, a lot of debates, a lot of talks over the last, let's go back to August when we formed the Solar Bylaw Study Committee. So there's been a lot of intense talks amongst all of the members of that committee. There's been some meetings that have been had for the public to come and listen and have some input on what would be good and what wouldn't be good. There is a bylaw that is going to be at town meeting here in a couple of weeks that has been, carefully reviewed and constructed and talked about and changed and added and subtracted. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what one individual thinks about solar, whether it's good, whether it's bad. It's coming together as a community to decide, do we want to protect what we have and crafting a bylaw that, we passed one at the last town meeting that the AG just rejected. So it's tough because as a community, we could agree on everything that could protect our town. But at the end of the day, we have to look at we have to think in the mind of, someone else that's really going to ultimately make that decision. So it's good, but we have to make sure that it's in the places that it needs to be. Let's use space that is already been disturbed. Let's not, clean sweep our forests and just put solar everywhere because, hey, maybe we can save a buck. So at the end of the day, I believe it's good, but it has to be in the right place.
Thank you. Jody.
I'm not against solar as long as it's in the right spot. I do not believe that we should be cutting down trees and lands to be putting up solar. The two kind of go against each other. Putting them on top of buildings, over parking lots, places that have already been developed, fine. I was one of the Wareham 10, you may or may not know. I signed an appeal to stop solar farms down on Tohonet Road. So no, I take a strong stance when it comes to that. I do not believe in cutting down any wilderness to put up solar. My children are Native American, and one of the things that they're taught is when you do something, you must think of the next 7 generations to come. If we keep on cutting down trees to put up solar panels or even houses or developments, what is it going to look like in 7 generations from now? There's going to be nothing left. And we need the trees just as much as, they need us. So, no, if you are coming and here in Wareham and you want to put up solar panels to cut down trees in forests, absolutely not. But if you want to come and say, hey, I'd like to put it on top of a building or over a school parking lot, then I think that would be great. Thank you.
And Jim.
I had a little bit to do with putting together the solar study committee. And, you're balancing the values of the public and the rights of the landowners. The state says you cannot unduly restrict solar development. So the committee that's working on it now is taken that into consideration, especially with the Attorney General saying the previous bylaw was too prohibitive. And hopefully they can move forward, and hopefully, and that's only part of it. Then you have the battery storage debate. Where do you site those? What do you do? What are the hazards related to them? Better energy efficiency in the homes. You'd need less power. I mean, do we want to keep using greenhouse gases? It's a balance, and hopefully we can somehow incentivize solar in commercial, industrial, open areas, places that have been pit mined, and what do you do with it? If someone can come in and they can take down 40 acres and put a plaza in, but we don't want to take down 40 acres and put a solar field in. So, it's a difficult thing. The right places, and the new bylaws kind of restricts it, and they use some information from the state SMART plan related to solar in choosing some of the siting areas. So I think we're moving in the right direction. It's reality. I'm for solar and alternative energy. That's it.
Thank you very much. Our last question tonight. There are many challenges for the future of our town, and we've talked about a lot of them tonight. What do you believe are some of the top challenges for Wareham and the town government today, and how would you go about solving them as a selectman? We will start with Ronald.
Wow. I think communication, it was brought up earlier in today's discussions in other races. Communication, transparency, having that open door policy to be able to have someone ask you a question without getting offended, or somebody asking a question about something that you have a firm stance on and just shutting it down. I believe that the country that we live in was built on the ability to freely speak and have discussion. I think we've lost a little bit of that. I think we need to bring that back. We have multiple platforms that we can use, some good, some bad, to be able to communicate. So when it comes to growing and high pressing issues, I think sometimes we censor the discussion. I don't think discussion needs to be censored. I think it needs to be open, it needs to be free, it needs to be understood. But as a society, we've kind of really stopped the open discussion. We've really prohibited the ability to have a full understanding of any issues. So without having a full understanding of any issues that we have, we're not going to be able to move forward. So communicating, being transparent, having that open dialogue, whether you like the discussion or you don't like the discussion, I think is very important to any issue that would be here in town either today, tomorrow, or 10 generations from now. It's just having that ability to speak without somebody looking at you and giving you the side eye with, wow, look at his stance or look at her stance, and just really being able to have that open communication. At the end of the day, we can walk away being, not agreeing, but knowing that we can continue to operate as a town and as a whole. Thank you.
Jody.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Sorry, all my papers are jumbled together. There are many challenges for the future of our town. What do you believe are some of the top challenges for Wareham and the town government today, and how would you go about solving them as a select person? You have 2 minutes.
Well, communication, or the lack thereof, and transparency is a big issue. I myself, being silenced when I was with the Wareham 10, wrongfully silenced at that for signing an appeal to save the trees. I wasn't allowed to come forward and speak about anything without permission, which that's definitely not okay. There is a huge disconnect, for whatever reason, between town officials and the everyday person. I'm learning that even more now that I'm campaigning. I'm standing out there handing out flyers, and people are like, oh, no, I don't want anything to do with it. But it shouldn't be that way. Like, as an elected official, we're supposed to work for the people. We're supposed to be a leader, and you should feel comfortable in coming forward, no matter if you think I'm going to agree or disagree. You should feel welcomed. And I will have an open door policy. And what that means is I'm already in the works now. I've been reaching out to a few local area businesses. If elected, I'm going to make myself available at least once or twice a month outside of the town hall. So if you feel like your voices are not being heard, if you're going to someone's door and they're not answering, or you're sending an email to a town official or an elected person, and you feel like you're getting nowhere, well, I'll be at Dunkin' Donuts Saturday from 10 to 12. Come down, and I will bring your frustrations to the table, and I will make sure that it's heard one way or another. Because again, as an elected official, some people have forgotten that we work for the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jim?
Challenges for the future for the town, right?
Yes.
One of the biggest ones currently is our wastewater capacity and how we deal with it. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to address that? And attached to that is the equivalent dwelling unit usage. It's just one rate for whether you're a one-family household or 8-family household. You get If you're a business, you pay on the number of seats or a laundromat, how many, machines you have in there. So that's a current one that needs to be addressed. You need that for growth. And what about growth? Smart growth, planning. You want to grow where you have the infrastructure and not expand into areas you don't to create the need to now service those areas. So that all has to do with zoning bylaw changes. We want a better community for everyone now, our children, the generations moving forward. These younger individuals here, they'll be taking over one way or the other, and their children also. So, hopefully we can work together and, just make it a better place. Thanks.
Thank you. Jared.
Thank you. Some of the challenges I see is our community is rapidly growing, and I feel like before we know it, it's going to be out of control for us to handle, whether it be the youth, the elderly, or services or whatever. I think the biggest challenge right now is the town, like many of the other people are talking about, is communications key. But I think we need to start focusing on all of those things quickly, sooner rather than later, and decide what to do, whether it's any of us or someone else needs to figure it out, the challenges that we're facing. Kind of went off on that one.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that's all I have for questions. So with that, we will go into your 2-minute closing statement, starting.
Can I just say one thing?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Before they go into their closing comments, we had a lot of questions that we just didn't have time to get to tonight. And this was other candidates too, especially this selectman though. So I am going to talk to Indiana and Alex from the Wareham Week to see if I email these questions out. And I'm not going to add any to them, just the ones that went unanswered, and see if I can get a written response to them. And maybe the Wareham Week will print them out. I'm not putting you under, you'll have to answer that now. I'm not putting you under the gun now. But I think there's some important questions still out there, and Indiana got some over the internet and stuff that we will see if we can't get some answers. I won't send out 20 questions to them, but maybe a couple what these guys feel are important. The other thing is, real quick, I just want to thank all the candidates for being here tonight. It was interesting. I'm really new to Wareham. I haven't even been here 5 years yet. So this was a learning experience for myself. Finally, I just want to thank Indiana. He did a tremendous job tonight. He stepped up, I hear a lot of things about Wareham schools, and Indiana is certainly a student you can be very, very proud of. He is what makes, a community. And hopefully he thinks of us small people when he moves ahead in life and sitting in a bigger seat. And again, just thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for giving me this opportunity too. And also, if you had questions that didn't get answered as well, I know some of the candidates have offered that you can reach out to them. And I don't want to speak on behalf of any candidates that didn't say that, but I'm sure if you had questions for them, you can follow up with them as well. All right, closing statements. We will start with Jody for a 2-minute closing statement.
I'd like to thank everybody for allowing me to come here tonight and talk. I would just ask that you would please give me a chance. In the last 6 months alone, I've sat on 4 committees. I'm currently on the steering committee. I'm with the Deacon's Foundation. I'm at the Council on Aging. I'm a mentor with the CUIE on top of just everyday life of raising 3 children alone, a granddaughter, a father, an uncle I care for. I've learned to balance and juggle life as it comes. I may not have all the answers, but I'm an avid researcher. Our current Board of Selectmen don't always have all the answers either. They often defer to Town Administrator or Mr. Bowen. Not that that's a bad thing, but I just want to point out that it's not a quality that you have to know everything to be a selectman. You know, I have decency, I have a strong moral compass, I know how to treat people with respect. I want to be held accountable. I'm sitting here tonight, I have nothing personal to gain, but helping to better my community, you know, and if at any time you feel like I'm going back on my word, then hold me accountable, you know, because as I said, as an elected official, I work for you, and I would be honored to be the face of a Wareham leader. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me on my Facebook page or at jodysantagate.com. I will be having more meet and greets. Please know that the only question that's wrong is the one that you don't ask me. And thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thanks for being here. And Jim, 2 minutes.
Okay, well, you know, thanks for everybody who came here and all those who are tuning in, and thanks for inviting me and hosting this. It's been interesting. I was sitting outside in the hallway listening, just kind of had a comfortable chair out there. I can just only think about how you're feeling there in the audience. Yeah, I just want to say it's been an honor and a privilege to have served the town for 3 years. And it would be an honor and a privilege to serve another 3 years. I've learned a lot. I have a lot to learn. And it's not for the money we do it. There's a steep learning curve at the beginning. It takes a lot of time. If you want to do a good job, it's a lot of time. It's learning processes within town government, no matter what you already know. Just the process of working through, you know, town warrants, liquor licenses, dog hearings. You know, and that's only part of it. And then it's a general laws, how it applies to the town. So I have the time. I'm willing to continue to do it, and I'll hope you consider supporting me in this next election. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again for being here, too. Jared, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you. I want to thank the town of Wareham and its residents for giving me the chance to speak here tonight. I would also like to thank my wife, family, and friends for honoring me with so much support to run. Whether I win or lose, I hope I've brought light to the points I've talked about tonight, and I ask that whoever does win runs with them. I also would like to tell everyone that if you have any further questions, you can reach out to me at Jared Chadwick for Selectmen on Facebook. Also, something my father did on Nantucket when he was a selectman over there, which I would like to continue no matter what, if I am elected, is something he used to call bench talks, finding various benches in town and talking with people to see what they want to say and hear what they have to say and bring it back to the town. So starting next week, I will be posting times when I'll be doing bench talks, and you'll be able to find me at various spots all over town. Thank you.
Thanks, Jared. Ronald, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Let me start by thanking the voters of Wareham, Indiana, your time here tonight. We appreciate seeing someone young that's still in high school being able to sit here and moderate through so some tough discussion, WCTV, Wareham Week. The biggest thing for me is vote. Whether you vote for me or whether you vote for someone next to me, just get out and vote. Your opinions matter. But if we don't get out to the polls to vote, none of this matters. So vote. The things that I see the town growing, and I see the ability that we have to be a very successful community. I'm going to be very active here regardless of what happens. I'm still on multiple committees here in town, so if I'm not elected, I'll still continue to serve on those. I know it's a very cumbersome to be able to be on the board. There's a lot of time that needs to be put into it. Yes, I have 5 kids, and people probably look at me like, do you have time? Well, yes, because my kids' futures depend on it. Your kids' futures depend on it. The voters of this town that have kids in this town depend on someone that's going to understand, where we're going to be in 10, 15 years. So I'm excited for the opportunity to be a voice and be a face for the town. I have an open door policy. You can reach out to me, Ronald Bessie for Selectmen on Facebook. I will gladly give out my email if you want to send some questions. I will be having some meet and greets coming up here soon, so the email is bessie.campaign@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out and ask me those questions, and I would be glad to answer them in some upcoming meet and greets. Thank you.
Thank you. And once again, just some thank yous. Thank you very much to WCTV for recording this event and doing our technical behind-the-scenes stuff. John, Bob back there, thank you very much. Thank you to our 2 Wareham Week reporters for being here tonight. Thank you guys for helping us out. And to everyone at home watching, to everyone in the audience, and especially to our candidates, thank you guys for coming out tonight. Now, if you missed part of our broadcast, it will be immediately shared to Facebook and will also be uploaded to YouTube. Please don't forget to get out and vote on Election Day and use your voice to spark the change you want to see in our town. My name is Indiana Troop. Thank you to everyone again, and have a great night.